Hello and welcome to Gang Culture Podcast, a series educating you about gang culture. This season, our host Ellis Rouse continues to talk with an array of unique voices to inspire, empower, and cause change. But also this season, we are exploring alternative activities being offered to teens in Delaware. Whether you are listening at home, school, or on the way to work, we hope you enjoy and share with others.
Welcome back to Gang Culture. Today we are talking to Scott Michels. Without Scott, this podcast may not exist. Scott is the founder of The Cause, which is a nonprofit organization that strives to inspire people to embrace the responsibility of improving their lives and their community through peer-to-peer leadership. It's through The Cause that we've built our production crew made up for youth and gives us the space to record the podcast. We are thrilled to talk to Scott about what led to the creation of The Cause and how it and organizations like it gives kids another alternative to joining a gang. Scott, welcome. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Is my voice radio ready? I hope so. Hopefully where you are right now, if you're driving, this rumble is making you feel good as you're about to learn about alternative activities to gangs.
Yes.
Sorry, I couldn't help myself. This is my first podcast.
Well, we are thrilled to have you here, Scott.
Thank you.
You are the reason why, and no point intended, but that is also something that you have created for us. And again, thank you for that great mind. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey and what drew you to create The Cause?
Absolutely. It is really an honor to be here. And I also am shouting out, I know if you're listening from home, you might already know this, but this podcast is produced and co-produced by some of our young youth in the community. So I just want to shout them out right off the bat. Good to be here with all of you. But it is youth sort of that brought me into The Cause. So my story basically started where I had a small contract with a local nonprofit to go into the Ferris School, which for listeners is a level 5 adjudication for youth in the state of Delaware, a lockdown facility. And I was hired to do a program where we would create a public service announcement video with a group of kids. And so I went there and made this video, and we had a wonderful time. And I have to admit that this was my first time really working with kids who were, locked up. So I had preconceived notions about what that would be like, and fear and anxiety, which very quickly was washed away by just really great people, great kids. And so what happened was I started to feel really wonderful about this project of making videos with kids. And then next thing you know, a few months after a kid might have gotten released, I would see them back in the program again. And it's really funny because I thought, hey, this kid was so smart. He's so good. He has everything he needs. What's he doing back, locked up again? And then, over a period of time, it became clear that, we were possibly not creating an environment or sending them back to something that could sustain some of these successes that the kids were starting to develop. So that was one part of the journey that started to have me think, what could we be doing out in the community that either supports these youth when they get back to make sure they don't go back again, get locked up, or furthermore, to primarily prevent them from ever getting there in the first place. So that started to drip in my mind. And then at the same time, the youth said, we'd like to do a video on gambling. And so I was like, okay, I don't really know anything about problem gambling. So I picked up the phone and called our local Delaware Council on Gambling Problems. Cold call, never talked to them before. I said, hey, I'm working with some youth who are adjudicated at the Ferris School. They'd like to make a public service announcement about gambling. They were like, oh, absolutely, please. Like, what can we do to make this possible? So they, in that preparation, said, we want you to know about gambling. So Scott, we're going to send you to a conference on gambling. So I went to a gambling conference. The next thing the kids wanted to do a video was on domestic violence. So we called the Delaware Coalition Against Domestic Violence and found out that they also were interested. And they said, Scott, we want to send you to a training. So they sent me to a training on domestic violence. Well, what started to happen was I was being sent to learn about different social issues that are challenging us so that kids could make a public service announcement about it. And I found that almost every single conference was basically the same ingredients, even though the name was different. They were talking about childhood trauma. They were talking about trauma, period. They were talking about alternative activities. They were talking about empowering peers who have been in these programs to help others. And all of a sudden what happened was I started to visualize sort of America's or our world struggles as tips of an iceberg that look different when we see them out of the water. Like, you know, bullying might look different than substance abuse from gang joining. But what are the root causes that lead people to some of these issues or that can help them recover are all pretty much similar. So the cause was born out of the idea of sort of distilling down what are these protective factors that keep us doing good stuff, you know, the things in our lives that actually protect us and can lead to success, versus what are the risk factors that think that are, you know, hurting us. And then how can we become people who promote these messages of what are the risk factors and the protective factors to each other so that we can, quote unquote, help each other evolve. So the cause, the channel you're listening to, this work really did all start from figuring out how to serve an adjudicated youth. And then it sort of unfolded to be like, wait a second, the same way the iceberg, you know, scenario with the issues, an adjudicated youth is suffering just like a community member, just like and all sort, you know, people that you might think are fully well off are also suffering in some way or another. And so sort of even the playing field of suffering and just all become healers instead of comparing it by peer-to-peer leadership. So that's what's got me to the cause. And so now I love the fact that we are able to bring in other people and experts to be sort of furthering that mission of how can we help each other evolve, how can we heal and live a happier, healthier lives. And it's just interesting because being on this show, gang culture, you know, gangs are sort of a community solution, if you will, to some needs that are out there. It might not be the healthiest in the way it's delivered all the time, but it is also still connected to these same needs that everyone's sort of looking for.
Yeah. You know, and that's incredible, the way you were able to cultivate that. And what I heard and what you were saying was that you were able to listen to the kids and to the youth that wanted to do certain things, and you worked around that. So I think that's really important. It sounds very similar to what got me into doing community outreach. I just listened to the guys in the neighborhood, and I was like, okay, we need to work on that.
Well, you know, it's funny. For those of you who know me, I'm normally not this prepared, but I really wanted to make sure I didn't forget anything. I have a whole bunch of notes in front of me for those watching at home. But one of the things I really wanted to make sure I talked about, this particular note card, it's yellow for those listening at home, is that years ago, when I was doing this work, I went into one of the classrooms and I said to the kids, and first of all, let me just say that you're right. Listening is where almost all this stuff starts. So if, you know, hearing what they're actually saying, listening not to comment back, but listening to hear what they said. So I went in once and I had this, it's really funny because the number was the same, $2 million. I went in and I had this idea. I said, kids, if I was to come in, I didn't call them kids, obviously. I said, if I was to come in with $2 million and you could spend it to build something in your neighborhood or in the community that would make sure that you wouldn't come to a place like this, what would you build? So I asked this about 10 years ago, maybe longer, actually. It was more like 15 years ago. And the first time I asked it, the kids actually started saying stuff like, "Oh, you know what? Well, nothing. Like, forget it. Like, you know, and it actually started to break my heart, and that they weren't even thinking about stuff like this. But this amazing mentor of mine, Melanie Soa, Mom Soa, they called her, was listening from the room next door. Apparently, she walked in and she said, "Scott, let me ask a question to the boys." She said, boys, let me ask you a question. So say you had $2 million, but it's for your little brothers and sisters. What would you like to do with that money?" And immediately they're like, "Well, we would build a studio, we would build a rec center, we would build this." And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, wait, I just asked this question. And she said, "No, you didn't. You asked them what we would want for them, and they have already mostly given up on themselves. But if you ask for about what they want for their younger brothers and sisters, then you can see like that they actually have all of these ideas and desires and dreams." So that actually was a huge moment in my life of realizing that sometimes the golden rule as we know it doesn't really work, because the golden rule as we know it is do unto others as those would do unto you. But if you're willing to self-sacrifice yourself, you know, then maybe it's not quite what we want. So we've changed that to do unto others as you would want done to your most vulnerable person. So by asking the students what you would want for your little brothers and sisters who haven't been hurt yet, they had tons of ideas. Now, update till just last week, I asked the same question to a class, but I posed it differently. I said, you guys are going to apply for a grant. What would you want the funding to do? How much would you ask for? And I'm telling you, if they all spoke of alternative activities without knowing that they're speaking of alternative activities. And what was the best thing is that each group, and I'm goosebumping talking about this, every group had a component where they were helping the community or helping others. Every single one. So I want our listeners at home to say, this is level 5 kids. Some of them have committed, you know, crimes at the highest level. But when they're given an opportunity and asked what we could do, they talk about not just alternative activities, but ways to help the communities, ways to help others. Their heart is truly of service. And one of them actually, 2 of the groups actually in their proposal said, paying youth to do positive things such as food giveaways, as you know, and a variety of them to actually train them. And I thought, what a wonderful thing. You know, it's almost like an AmeriCorps for teenagers where they're getting a variety, but as we get into our conversation, you're going to hear that would give them so many different outlets to become a positive leader in their own lives and the lives of others. So just to bring it back, by listening to the kids who are actually involved in the gangs and things like that, their hearts and minds want to solve this too. So we should be listening to them. And then, as you did, because I do know your story, and I think that it's been told in this series before, but Ellis listened, found out they needed a basketball league, and helped get that started. So we're going to touch on ways to do that later as well.
Yeah. And that's tremendous effort, and you know, it shows that we are a community, you know, when we can listen and pitch in and not judge. Yeah. Have you or someone close to you been personally affected by gang culture?
Well, in my role as a teacher in the adjudicated system of Delaware for now 20 years, I've been doing it. Yes. Many of the kids that I work with are either associated with gangs or have been involved with or around gangs. And for those who work in this field and in this system, it's a harsh reality is that you lose students at a rate that is not right. You know, and when I'm talking about losing students, I'm talking about students who are murdered or who end up dying in criminal activity or associated with gangs. So honestly, there's been so many since in the 20 years, but Many of those were gang affiliated when the news came out as to why it happened. So, and you know what's one of the hardest things when that happens is that as a teacher and someone who loves their students and wants to see the best for them, it's heartbreaking on both sides. You know, my heart breaks, you know, for the victim and the victim's family, and my heart breaks for the person who did it and their family, because it destroys both to a certain degree, or it can. You know, I don't want to put any kind of, you know, measure on it, but yeah. So I have been, and that, you know, I am silly and I like to have fun, but I do take this work very, very seriously, and part of it, and this gets into alternative activities too, is approaching these things in a way that allures kids to actually be a part of things like that. So sometimes, even though we're dealing with serious things like that, I still like to keep my levity and my heart light so that we can get through this work together.
If someone in a community wants to start or support an alternative activity, how can they find that?
Well, I'm going to back up and start by defining a little bit about alternative activities for the audience at home. And the term alternative activity, when I'm using that, I'm using it and borrowing it from the Center for Substance Abuse Prevention. So it's CSAP. And it's interesting to note that we here at the Cause also run the Delaware Prevention Partners, which is a substance abuse prevention coalition of organizations. And there's a phrase in the prevention field, which is prevention is prevention is prevention is prevention. And so the idea is a lot of the same mechanics and strategies that might prevent substance abuse in youth could also prevent gang involvement in youth or violence in youth. And so a lot of these theories and strategies cross over, and that's part of that iceberg I was talking about before. So the CSAP strategies, there are 6 of them. And this is basically, if these 6 strategies are occurring, it can change a program around. I'm going to see if I can do them from memory, but you have education, which is a 2-way back and forth program. You have information dissemination. This is what this is, public service announcements going out there. You have community-based processes, which is like starting coalitions, working with the different community members and sectors of the communities to get something happen. You have environmental approaches, which is changing literally the environment that people are in. So that could be like having lights in neighborhoods where it's been traditionally dark, where there might have been traditionally criminal activity, like changing the lights, putting up billboards with positive things. And then the 6th is alternative activities. And so alternative activities is basically a strategy that provides people with opportunities that are healthy, constructive, and engaging to fulfill the social, emotional, recreational, and developmental needs of a youth. So basically, youth have needs. Mike Farrell, who I met years ago, who played B.J. Honeycourt in the MASH series, he actually had a thing where he says that he believes all people are really seeking love, attention, and respect. So attention, you know, being seen or acknowledged. But I put a couple more on there that, you know, I think most youth are looking for, you know, excitement, friends, common interest, opportunities to do stuff, to grow, you know. And so basically, these are needs that youth will find. They will hunt them down and find if we don't provide them for them. So if we are not providing places of excitement, places where they can connect with friends, ways for them to find attention and respect, to be seen, if we're not providing that, they will find it, and they will find it sometimes not in the most positive manners. You know, there's an old saying, the kids that we expel from the village will burn it just to feel the warmth. Or the people that you don't open your arms to and open your front door to have access to you and your love and respect will find a window to climb in the back. So it's our choice, like how we deal with people. But if we do it with an open heart and start providing these things that kids need, that's sort of what alternative activities they do. They provide these needs in a structured way. So examples could be sports teams. Kids, help me out. What are some alternative activities? It could be a cooking class. It could be dance. Give me one out there. What do you got? We're asking our studio. A production class. That's exactly right. So where we are right now is an alternative activity. And I am going to get to your question, Nellis, I promise, about how people can start. But I did put together, to keep us on track, a little list of 10 benefits of alternative activities. What do you guys think? Should we read them? And then I've also attached a alternative activity or two to each of these 10 things so that you're going to understand what it does and then an example. But one of the first ones is to fulfill that need of belonging. Everybody just wants to belong. And as a matter of fact, there's evidence out there that says weak social bonds are a risk factor for people joining gangs. So where can you find belonging? Sports, music bands, youth councils, dance teams. How about number 2? It can build healthy adult-youth relationships. So a lot of times kids who are joining gangs are people who don't have positive adult connections or relationships. For those listening at home, that does not have to be a parent. It can be any caring adult. That could be you listening right now. You could be the lifeline to someone. And so alternative activities around that would include mentorship, would include coaching and stuff like that. Number 3, it offers safe, structured environments. So like here, when we're open, we're a safe place. They do say for youth, the hours of 3 to 6 are sort of the hot spot. Those are the hours after school and before, they're back home. And so if there are not structured activities, again, back to the thing, they will find things to do. And so having those 3 hours structured for youth is a huge thing. So after school programs that are, and I do want to put in there, it has to be structured. Like just having a drop-in center with no structure can be harmful. It's where some of the negative relationships can start and fester. So it does have to be structured. Structured could be as simple as having a homework hour, having an art project that day, having a speaker come in, things like that. Number 4, it teaches leadership skills. And those are also been proved to reduce risk behavior. So that could be involving kids in leadership projects. What we're doing right here is doing that. We're inviting our kids to be part of this program. Number 5, replace the thrill of thrill seeking. So that is one that I think is pretty big. It's fun to be a kid and it's fun to do risky things. But what the evidence says is that you can get that risky excitement in other ways. One thing we do here at the Cause is that there's a live show once a month, and these kids basically are improvising half of that show. It's an exciting, almost risky behavior to get up on there and perform a show. So doing things like performances or some sort of positive challenge can help replace that. Number 6, I get to turn these over. I did them so nicely. Strengthens school and community connection. If your alternative activity can be attached to a school, like after school program, or a community association, we're in a community center here, that there's a lot of evidence about positive school attachment actually can cut gang joining by 60%. Says the National Gang Center. I thought that was pretty interesting. So that's including youth and leadership roles. We have number 7, promotes emotional and coping skills. You might have heard of those as social emotional skills. One thing I'll talk about that later, but you can attach a social emotional lesson to a traditional alternative activity like basketball, teach a drug lesson or a gang lesson. And let's see, number 8. Gotta find my cards, creates viable pathways to success. right here, the kids in this program have already advanced from their technical skills to they're now actually getting paid to be here today. And some of them have gone on to do editing work and video work for others. So sometimes your skills, your alternative activities can lead to careers and other paths. I was just listening to it on the way here. NPR was talking about a woman who got out of drugs and gangs by basket weaving. And the basket weaving became a business where she is now actually making a living off of her protective factor. And then number 10 is, well, I can't find my number 10 card. So, here it is. Yes, celebrates community pride and cultural pride. What this is all about is that people do a very big protective factor is feeling like you belong to a community. And so some ways of doing that are through cultural heritage type things or community-based connections. You might not be connected through your culture, but through where you live, you can have community connections. All of these different reasons are part of these things that kids are looking for that we can provide in healthy and wonderful manners. Now I'm going to answer that question. I'm sorry, everyone at home. I know you like listening to Ellis's voice too, but I'm going to talk a little bit more. So if you're at home and you're thinking, well, geez, I want to help out, because also alternative activities are not just about gang prevention. It's not just about drug and alcohol prevention. It's about building great human beings, citizens. So you're sitting at home, you're like, how do I start one of these? Well, first thing I would say to do is if you have a hobby or it's something that you think you want to do, like I want to start a drawing club or a photography club, do some research in your immediate area and find out where it's happening and see if you can connect to something that's already happening. A lot of times people will come and try to start their own thing, but there's another proverb, go alone, go fast, go together, go far. The other thing is that other places might be established, so try to connect with what's already out there. If you can't find anything out there and you have a need, you can then go ahead and start to put that need together, and you can find funding. So the first thing I would suggest to do is try to connect to an organization that might have this need. Say there's an organization, I'm going to use your example, basketball. They work with kids, they're looking for something to do. You could say, hey, I can bring a basketball club to your place if you guys can supply some funding for us to have snacks and things like that. And then there's actually funding through lots of different organizations to fund things like alternative activities. There are anti-gang funding. There is substance abuse funding. So you can go to your local state and ask each state has a prevention department, basically. And you can find this out just by going to your state websites and just ask, are there funding opportunities? You can, and so a lot of this, Ellis, you said at the beginning was about community. So you can go around just asking people to either help you put it together, ask for funding, but by talking about what you want to do, you will find partners to actually pull it off. And so it's really just connecting your passion to resources and opportunities to make it happen.
Well, thank you for that, because I think a lot of people that would like to get involved just don't know where to start. And that was a great breakdown of how you can get involved and start and be a part of the community. So appreciate that. What is one thing you would want the listeners to take away from our conversation?
Okay. So the one thing that I want, and this is the cause message all around, which is this: everybody can be a part of this. Everybody listening right now. And I challenge you to challenge me to find a way for you to get involved. But just if you think about it, depending on where you are, who you are, and what your skill sets are, you can become a mentor. You can start your own program. You can tell others about the importance of alternative activities. You can post on social media. That's as simple, because we are all trying to help each other evolve. So you can just take a fact that you learned from this and post it. You can post this very episode. That is helping be part of the problem. Maybe you're an artist, you can draw a picture about something. You're a singer, you can write a song about something that inspires you to help others. But my ending close here is that what really is going to help eliminate negative gangs in the world is the creation of positive alternatives for that. And each one of us can take and embrace the responsibility of being part of that cause. So my challenge to you is just look in the mirror and say, what am I good at? What do I like to do? And do it loud enough that you can inspire other people to follow you. So that's my closing thing is be a part of this. Be a part of evolving each other. If it's gangs, if it's something else. But just by helping others be good people, you will be preventing people from joining gangs.
Well, Scott, thank you. That was very insightful, and I've known Scott for a very long time, and I'm just happy that we can share this with the rest of the world.
Me too. We've had this conversation a few times, and I think that's one last thing of note to say, is that this work is always happening, not just on the podcast. And so just keep at it, and together with the team, we will solve it all. Or
Thank
figure
you.
out how to be good together.
I agree. Thank you, Scott.
We hope you found this episode informative. We look forward to continuing the conversation, and stay tuned for our next episode.
You're listening to a production from The Cause. Learn more at causetheworld.com.